Welcome to United Case Report. Trust is the foundation of every institution: schools, banks, hospitals, and churches. The relationship between a congregation and its pastor rests on a specific kind of trust. The belief that the person standing at the front of the room, speaking about integrity and accountability, actually practices what they preach. Today's case involves a pastor who did not. When a church member began telling people what she had witnessed, behavior she found troubling, conduct she believed the congregation deserved to know about. The pastor didn't address the allegations. He didn't resign. He didn't ask for a meeting. He sued her. He called her claims rumors. He called them lies. He called them defamatory. Then the evidence came out in court. The rumors were true. The congregation was a mid-sized Baptist church in Atlanta, Georgia. Approximately 350 active members, a functioning choir, a youth program, and a long history in its community. Pastor Williams had led the church for 11 years. He was well-liked, charismatic, and by most members' accounts, an effective and engaging speaker. He was also, it would emerge, misusing church funds. The woman who brought this to light was named Dorothea, a 61-year-old retired accountant who had been a member of the church for 22 years. She served on the church's finance committee. She had access to the books. What she found in those books was not dramatic embezzlement. It was a steady, quiet pattern of personal expenses: restaurant meals, a car lease, hotel stays, being charged to the church's operating account under categories like pastoral outreach and community engagement. The amounts were not individually large. Cumulatively, over the 3 years Dorothea examined, they totaled approximately $47,000. Dorothea brought this to the attention of 2 other finance committee members. Then, when no action was taken, she spoke to her Sunday school group, and then to a few other long-standing members she trusted. Pastor Williams found out, and he filed a defamation lawsuit. The lawsuit alleged that Dorothea had made false and defamatory statements about Pastor Williams to members of the congregation, causing damage to his reputation and his standing in the community. The claimed damages were $115,000. Dorothea, on a retired accountant's income, was not in a position to absorb a 6-figure judgment. She was frightened. She considered settling just to make it go away. Her attorney talked her out of it. The defense in a defamation case, when the statements in question are true, is absolute. Truth is a complete defense to defamation. The statements cannot be defamatory if they are accurate. Dorothea had spreadsheets. She had receipts she had requested copies of through her finance committee role. She had 3 years of documented discrepancies between the church's stated expenses and the actual nature of those expenses. The question was not whether she had said what she said. She had, and she acknowledged it. The question was whether what she said was true. Pastor Williams arrived in court in a well-tailored suit. He was accompanied by 2 deacons from the church, who sat in the gallery. He carried himself with the particular composure of a man accustomed to occupying positions of authority. Judge Judy noted, in her review of the initial filings, that the lawsuit did not dispute the specific figures Dorothea had cited. It disputed only the framing and the context. It argued that the expenses were legitimate pastoral activities that had been mischaracterized. She asked Pastor Williams' attorney to walk her through the legitimate pastoral purposes served by the specific expenses Dorothea had documented. The attorney described a dinner as a pastoral meeting with community leaders. The car lease as transportation required for outreach. The hotel stays as accommodation during regional church conferences. Judge Judy asked for documentation supporting these characterizations. The documentation was, to put it generously, thin. Several of the pastoral meetings had no attendee records. The hotel stays corresponded to dates when no regional conferences were on record. The car lease agreement was in Pastor Williams's personal name. Dorothea was the kind of witness who makes opposing attorneys uncomfortable, methodical, unemotional, and thoroughly prepared. She walked through the spreadsheet she had prepared, 3 years of entries, each one flagged with the stated expense category on the books and the actual documented expense. She explained, in the clear language of someone who had spent 30 years working with numbers, precisely why each flagged item appeared inconsistent with legitimate church operations. She was asked, on cross-examination, whether she had any personal animosity toward Pastor Williams. She said she had attended his church for 22 years. She said she had supported him publicly on multiple occasions. She had brought the concerns to the Finance Committee privately before speaking to anyone else, specifically because she did not want to cause public embarrassment. She said, I was hoping he would address it. I was hoping I was wrong. But when nothing happened after I raised it internally, I felt that the people who were putting their money in that offering plate had a right to know where it was going. Judge Judy looked at her for a moment. Then she looked at Pastor Williams. The pivotal moment of the hearing came when Judge Judy addressed Pastor Williams directly. She asked him, specifically, whether the expenses Dorothea had documented were legitimate church expenses. He said they were. She asked him to explain, specifically, the hotel's stay on the date that corresponded to no documented conference. He said it was for a private pastoral retreat. She asked where the retreat had taken place. He named a hotel in Savannah. She asked who else had attended. He said it was a solo retreat for prayer and reflection. Judge Judy was quiet for a moment. You stayed in a hotel, she said, alone for 4 days, and charged it to the church as a pastoral expense. He said that was correct. And you are suing this woman, Judge Judy said, for telling people that you were charging personal expenses to the church. He began to say something about context and framing. Judge Judy raised one hand. The statement she made, she said, was that you were charging personal expenses to the church. You have just confirmed, under oath, that you charged a solo hotel stay to the church. Tell me how her statement was false. Voiceover. The defamation case was dismissed entirely. Pastor Williams was awarded nothing. The court also noted, in a formal finding, voiceover, that the documentary evidence Dorothea had presented established a good faith basis for every statement she had made, meaning the defamation claim had not only failed on the merits, but had been filed without reasonable legal basis. Judge Judy addressed Pastor Williams before concluding, you came into this courtroom to silence a woman who told the truth. You used the legal system as a tool not to seek justice, but to create consequences severe enough to make her stop talking. That is an abuse of the legal process, and it failed. She paused. The truth is a complete defense to defamation. Dorothea knew that. She knew it because she was telling the truth. And the truth, in this courtroom, is always going to win. The civil case closed with Dorothea's complete vindication. The documentation she had presented was subsequently reviewed by the church's board of directors, which led to an independent audit of the church's finances, covering the full period of Pastor Williams's tenure. Pastor Williams resigned before the audit was completed. Dorothea remained a member of the church. Several of the members who had initially been skeptical of her approached her after the verdict to apologize for doubting her. She said she understood. She said she had doubted herself too for a while. There is something particularly significant about a case like this. Not just the outcome, but what it represents. A person in a position of trust attempted to use the legal system itself as a weapon against accountability. He tried to make the cost of telling the truth too high for one woman to bear. She bore it anyway. The truth is a complete defense to defamation. Dorothea knew that before she ever set foot in the courtroom, and in the end, the evidence she had carefully gathered over years of careful, responsible financial oversight was the very thing that protected her. In this case, the rumors were true, and the truth won. Thank you for watching United Case Report. Subscribe for daily courtroom drama. The courtroom never rests.